Okay, guys. This week's parasha. That's how we always start, right? This week's parasha. I'm gonna start with something different. I'm gonna start with, believe it or not, something that may or may not be popular, but depending on where you're coming from. But I know that there's two people at this table, myself being one of them, that can relate. If I can remember the words correctly, we're going to start with this. It's a Boy Scout oath. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and country, to help other people at all times, to obey the Scout law, and to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Okay. Now, why am I starting with that?
Quick question: did people get into the room? Did they?
All they have to do is get in.
Do you see Danny?
No, I don't see Danny Shiloh.
Okay.
All right, maybe we'll have to start this again. I thought I sent the link. I sent the
We'll put
link.
our sign.
I don't know.
This time we'll put our
Right
sign.
on the seal.
Yeah. All right.
You setting up your cell phone?
No. There's all out of batteries, so we're going to record on the computer.
Oh, here it is.
Okay, so why am I starting with this thing with the Boy Scouts? I'm going to give you the answer towards the end. Okay? But I was in scouting as a kid, and as an adult, I was a scout leader along with Dr. Karp. We had a Shomer Shabbat Boy Scout troop, and all of our sons went through it, and all of them, so far, 4 out of the 5 became Eagle Scouts, and the 5th one is about to, which is the highest level you could get. Now, I'm going to relate that to what we're going to talk about and learn about in a few minutes. I want to talk about the beginning of the Parsha first, though. Okay, so that's the tease. Like the tease, and we're going to see how it comes together. The Parsha begins with this. It says, Teitzei, L'milchama alav avovecha, oyevecha, right? When you go out to war against your enemies. Untano Hashem Elohecha biyadecha v'shabita shibyo. And Hashem is going to deliver them into your hands. Now, there's an intense question here. The Or Chaim asks this question. We're going to get to the answer. It says, why does it have to say when you go out to war against your enemies? So could you say when you go out to war, Hashem will deliver them? Who else do you go to war with? You go to war with your friends? You go to war with your neighbor? I hope not. And I certainly hope you don't go to war with your spouse, right? You may disagree from time to time with your spouse. That's not a war. That's a marriage, and hopefully you'll be able to resolve it. That's marriage. But going to war, that's a whole different story here. Okay? And so who else are you going to go to war with? We're talking about war. Milchama, that's, the swords and rifles and guns and tanks and, missiles and all this other stuff. So that's the first thing. Shem's going to bring them into our hands. Then he brings like this. Varita v'shivya eshet yafa to'ar. And when you go there, and amongst the wording is very interesting. He says, you're going to capture the captive, or the captives. Would be you're going to capture prisoners. I'm going to capture the enemy. When you capture the captives, okay, and you see them what? A yafat toar, eshet yafat toar, a beautiful woman, a woman that's pleasing to you. Right? It's as good form. Okay? V'chashakta ba v'lakachta lecha liisha. Says, and you're going to want to take her for a wife. You want her for you. Okay? V'chabeta el toch betecha v'gilcha ed rosha v'hasata ed tziparaneha. That you're going to bring her into your house, and she's going to shave her head. She's going to cut her nails down. Let her nails grow. You're going to take out, we'll just go through the basic thing. She's going to change her clothes. She's going to sit shiva for her mother and father, right? And after a month, if you still desire her, she comes to you. We have another pasuk. that I just want to mention now. We're going to get to the other that I'm going to relate it all together. It says what? It says. Let me just find it. I had it here. Here it is. This is Ki tivne bait chadash v'asita me'akeh legagecha v'lo tashim damim bebetecha kol yipol unafel mimenu. When you build a new house, right, and you're going to make a fence, you should make a fence on your roof so that you're not going to have blood on your hands. In other words, what? It sounds like so that somebody's going to fall. It says here, there's no blood on your hands if somebody falls. You make a roof. Okay. What's that have to do with this? The whole parish is filled with all these little tidbits. But I thought it'd be nice to relate this. And thank God I wasn't the only one that thought that. The Or Chaim, it brings a very big thing. The Netiv Shalom also brings. And so we're gonna end the Bat Ayin also brings the relationship between all of these. So somehow, we were inspired. So the simple meaning is this. Rashi brings like this, is when you go out to war, it means it's a voluntary war. In other words, the war didn't come to you, you went to it. So voluntary war, a great example of this is the war, Israeli war in 1967, the Six-Day War. Right? That was a voluntary war. We didn't have to do it. It was a preemptive strike.
We had to.
Oh, we had to, but I mean, we didn't have to from the Torah. It wasn't a Torah-ordained war. That's the point.
Wait, what's the difference?
The Torah, there's certain, like against Amalek and things like that, you have to kill them. So the difference. So here, it was we chose to say, we're going to go. Preemptive. These guys are, I mean, practically we had to, but not from the Torah perspective. Okay? So that's the first thing. And then he says, Rashi comments also, and he quotes Onkelos, that the idea of building the fence, the railing, Onkelos translates it not as a fence but as a bag, meaning that it's a protection. A bag, when you buy groceries, you put them in a bag to protect the groceries.
Okay.
It's easier to carry, but it also protects them. In other words, you carton them up, you put them together.
What do you put, the fence?
No. The Onkelos says don't translate it as a fence, translate it as a bag, meaning that it's a form of protection. It's not just, in other words, the fence is it's an example.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the example is when you have a dangerous. In other words, you could look at it like this: when there is a seemingly dangerous situation that somebody could fall, they could hurt themselves, something like that. Put protection, have protection around you or around them, right, to prevent things.
I heard a little earlier, it's where God's going to determine that the person's going to fall. But if the person falls, it's not on you. You did
Right.
everything to make the protection.
Very good. I was going to bring that up. So, and that's what it says, is that that's what it says, you won't have blood on your hands. Even if he falls, it's not your fault. You took the protection. You made the precautions. Okay, but if you didn't have the precautions in place, it would have been your fault. But the determination that the person's supposed to fall was not up to you. It was up to Hashem. Okay, so now we see a pretty clear line on this. And there's another pasuk in a different parsha, Becholot Techa, I think, that he talks about going out to war again. And that was the war that's a required war, where the Torah says you got to go and you got to. Okay? So now, the Or Chaim. Let's go back to the Or Chaim. I'm going to start with him, because he brings a beautiful thing. He says, when you go out to war against your enemies, and he asks this whole question. He says, you're going to capture its captives. The captives are already captive, So how do you capture somebody that's already captive? In other words, maybe it would sound like you're talking about that these people had prisoners. So you're going out in a war against, say, Eretz Canaan or whatever, and they had captured people, and you're going to take the people they had captured, and you're going to take them. That's one way. So, says
For leverage?
just desire.
Just take them.
Desire, because he was saying that you capture somebody and you desire her, right? Right? Because what? She's an Eshet Yafat Toar, right? Somebody, a woman of beautiful form. There was a nice person. Hey, I'm desirous of her. And by the way, he brings that, when we go to war, a lot of the rules are lifted in war. For example, laws of kashrut, that people have to, what do you call it? You have to eat. Soldiers have to eat. And so he says, the Orach Chaim brings is, okay, in that case, bacon's going to be allowed. Yeah, he specifically says dafka bacon. I guess it was popular in those days too, He says it's going to be, so here, you might think the woman's not allowed, but there's leeway of it, and there's actually a commentary on it that says, why does the Torah allow us to go with this woman? Then we're presumably a non-Jewish woman. It's because this is just as an aside, but forbidden fruit is sometimes more attractive than permissible fruit, right? So the guys are out at war. They're away from their families, they're away from their wives, they're away from this and that. They see a beautiful woman. The whole mindset of being at war changes. We see that all the time. The mindset of a soldier has to be different, totally different. In fact, he brings that when you go to war, that the soldier at that point has to lose focus on his family, his children, and his wife, and also has to be willing and ready to lay their life on the line, to go in without fear. Otherwise, you can't go to battle. That's why we said in last week's parsha, if there's the whole line of if you built a new house, you just got married, you planted a vineyard, you have a why? Because it also gives an excuse for those people that were afraid to say, oh yeah, I planted a vineyard, I haven't had any of the wine yet, I'm exempt. It's the worst thing in a war is a guy that's fearful. I know a guy that from our area here in South Florida, and he volunteered. He was a lone soldier in the IDF, and he. I wasn't meaning to tell this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway because it actually is a nice lead into the next part. He goes there and he served his time in the IDF, and they made him he wanted to be an infantryman. He wanted to be out there. He wanted to fight, defend the land of Israel, and so on. But when it came down to it, he didn't have the right stuff, to do it. He just they're very astute, the Israeli army. They know who's afraid, who's not afraid. You're not it. They made him a truck driver. So he's a truck driver, delivered things here, there, blah, 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 blah. And he served his time, and he did what he was supposed to do. This is an amazing story. So he left the army, and he was living in Israel. Then October 7th happened, and they called all the reserves. It's reserves. So they told him, report to this base that's quite close to Gaza. And he reports, and he said, where are the trucks? I'm here to drive the trucks. The trucks haven't gotten here yet. So we need you to do something else. The infantry guys are coming. You're going to hand out the weapons. Now, they had these arsenals, like an armory, and the weapons were not always as well maintained as you would hope they would be. And he was handing out the weapons to all the soldiers that came in. Here's your weapon, here's your weapon, here's your weapon, whatever the weapon was. And then he was at the base. And they gave him a weapon. He just realized he didn't have what it took to shoot anybody. And so when the soldiers went out, the Arabs came in, and Hamas came in, and they were attacking the base. And he got very scared. He was shaking. And the base was able to fight off the attack. And they succeeded. At this point, he looked at the commanding officer, And the commanding officer could see this. He was pale. He was shaking. He could not function. So he said, "That's it, you're going home." And he called, and they sending over a truck. In the interim, while they're waiting for the transport to take him from the base and send him home, and home in this case meant back to America, because at this point it was like, you're of no use here, and you really need to be home then with your parents and your family, and see a good psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, and get counseling. You have, we don't want anything bad to happen to you. So, while they're waiting for the transport, Hamas attacks a second time. But by this time, he had already turned in his weapon, and he didn't know what to do. And he dove underneath a pile of sleeping bags without a weapon, and he could hear Hamas go into the room, out of the room, this and that. Again, they fought them back, and they were able to get them off the base. And he told me, he said, the whole time he was under sleeping bags, he was praying to Hashem that if he gets out of this alive, he promises he's going to put on tefillin every single day. He got out alive, and he told me, he said, it's my commitment. Every single day, I have tefillin on. I don't care. This is not the top level of observance. He's at his level of observance. But now he's everyday tefillin. So I'm telling you that story because we could see that war is not always for the faint-hearted. So here we see that in war, things get lifted. Restrictions get lifted because you have to turn into a different person. You have to turn into somebody that is not afraid, that's not going to think, if I do this, what about my wife, what about my family, what about my kids? I have to go and do, because otherwise more people die and the war is lost. So this is Or Chaim. But he says, but wait a minute, we have something else. When it says when you go out to war, there's another war we fight. What do we all battle every single day? The war is the Teitzei. Every day we're battling the Teitzei. It says this whole thing is a metaphor for the battle that we face on a day-to-day basis of the Teitzei. And when it says that you go out to war, when does that war begin? The moment you go out. Go out from where? The moment you're born. You go out from the womb. Now we're at war with the Teitzei. We may not see it, we may not know it, certainly as a little kid. We have beautiful Dominicana sitting here, and, she's like, she's probably no Teitzei, at least not yet. But eventually we all get the Teitzei. We all have to battle it. So he brings something deeper. He says, what are we trying to free with? We have the captives. He says that inside of not all people, but inside of many people that are not Jewish, is a Jewish neshama. It says that's being held captive in the body of a non-Jew. And that Jewish neshama is being held captive sometimes with a soul of a non-Jew, and they're together. Okay? And I had some of this marked, and I don't want to be flipping through pages too much, but the Bat Ayin, he brings in here something interesting. He says that this idea of fighting the Teitzei means that we're really doing teshuvah. And so it's very timely. We're at the beginning of Elul, which is our time that we really focus and concentrate on teshuvah. And he says, what represents a Baal Teshuvah is the letter Bet. Bet for Baal Teshuvah. Okay? And how do you spell the letter Bet? Bet, Yud, Tet, right? Which also spells the word Bait. So your house is representative of doing teshuvah. Brings it very, very clearly. And so when it says you're going to bring her into your house, right? He quotes the Or Chaim here, that the Or Chaim is referring to these souls when you capture them that you want to bring into your house, meaning you're going to bring her in to do teshuvah. You're going to capture this soul from a captive. In other words, that soul, that Jewish soul, is being held captive in the body of a non-Jew. And you're going to bring that soul into your house through teshuvah, for them to do teshuvah, to now to realize their potential as a Jewish soul, a Jewish neshama. And this is what the Eshet Yafat is. It's not just a woman of good form. The soul is referred to in the feminine. Our souls are, we say she to regarding a soul. So this is a beautiful soul that now is being captured, that you have to your desire is suffer. You want things to happen. Okay? So he brings now he's going to bring here. He says that so your house is the idea of teshuvah. When it says you're going to shave her head, it means you're going to remove evil thoughts. And this is also for us in teshuvah. You're removing evil thoughts from the head. This is when you let the nails grow out, meaning what? It's referring to repairing your hands, the things that your hands themselves do, the actions that we take. Okay? And when it says she's going to cry over her father and mother for a month, he says what? That our thoughts give way to action, and mother and father is what it takes to create. So the mother and father, meaning that our thoughts that are not so good, we're going to regret that we had them. We're going to cry over them. Now, if you remember, probably about a month and a half ago, we talked about the idea of change being 40 days and also change being 30 days. So 30 days, we said, can change certain habits. So here he says, cry over 30 days. In other words, I'm going to retrain my thinking. It's going to take me 30 days to retrain how I go about things. Now, he also brings that sometimes we slip when we've done teshuvah, and we slip back into old habits. We slip back into old ways. And what do we do when we do that? We have to do teshuvah a second time, right? We have to go a second time. Now, I want to fast forward here in the Or Chaim a little bit, and he says, now, what do I do? He's bringing, what do I do when I want to battle this Yetzer Hara? He says you have to have, basically, he's saying that you have to be relentless. It can't be like, I'll do it today and tomorrow I'll not. You can't, like, I just read an article, there's an actor that had a drinking problem and he stopped drinking for 7 years, totally, and now he says, I can have a little bit every now and then, and anybody that really understands the idea of people that have a problem with alcohol and drug use and abuse it or whatever, that you can't just, you either stop or you don't, or you go. There's no, I'll stop for now and I'll have a couple of drinks, and I've known people in my life that have suffered from we'll call it the disease of alcoholism, whatever. I'm not labeling him or anything else like that, but I saw it so many times where, okay, I'm clean and sober for a year, 2 years, but now I feel I could be in control, and before you know it, they were right back to square one. So the idea here is that you have to be relentless in your battle with the Yetzer Hara. You have to be totally hyper-focused and zeroed in on it.
You see a lot of people lose a lot of weight and then they gain back more.
Right, you're looking at one. I lost weight, I gained back, but I'm still trying to battle. not as intensely as I was. But you're right. There's things like that, you know. We see it quite often. Now, we're gonna. This is not gonna be as long a year as we always do, but hopefully it'll be a little bit meaningful. So I want to fast forward to where we started off with the Boy Scout oath. Why did I start off with the Boy Scout oath? Because I want to go to this other pasuk, that when you build a new house, that you should put the railing on the roof. What does a railing do? So now, first off, before we get to that, just to recap, we see that this whole thing is a metaphor for Elul, going out in battle against our Yetzer Hara, taking those things that were captive, whether it's a Jewish neshama that's trapped in a non-Jewish body, and to take the captive out, to release them, and it also, by the way, doesn't mean that it's a Jewish neshama that's in another body. It could be in another entity. As we've talked about before, that when you make a bracha, somebody could have a gilgul, a reincarnation into an inanimate object like an apple. When you make the bracha on the apple, it releases that neshama from the apple. You're not saying every apple has that, but we see all these things. But yet the Yetzer Hara is very clever. The Yetzer Hara is out there to get us each and every time. So now we get to the Boy Scout bit. Yehuda, what was the Boy Scout motto?
Be prepared.
Be prepared. This is what it's about. Boy Scout motto is be prepared. From the time I'm a young kid, be prepared. That's what they told you. What could happen? You know, we had a checklist when we would go camping. I need bug spray. I need sunscreen. I need to make sure I have water, a raincoat, this and that. Be prepared. When I learned how to pack a backpack, you know, when we went backpacking, I learned you take your raincoat or your rain poncho and you put it at the top of the backpack so that when it starts to rain, you're prepared to just take it and not get wet, as opposed to burying it down in the bottom. You be prepared for whatever situation. Here in South Florida, we certainly see that. Hurricane season, people stock up on water, have gas cans, they have a plan. So same, even more so with the Yetzer Hara. We have to be prepared. Where does the Yetzer Hara, where does she lay for us? What's the ambush going to be? What's going to happen? Shmiras Ayin is a very big thing, right? For example, looking at things you're not supposed to look at. What's my game plan if I'm in an environment where it's all around me? How do I do things? Take off your glasses if you wear glasses. Now everything's fuzzy. Look the other way. Pardon me? Filters. Put on sunglasses. Have a book with you. Take a safer. Okay, I can't look around here. I'm just going to read. What about there's things I'm hearing? Maybe you're in an environment where the music is totally inappropriate. And you need to be in that environment for whatever. You're waiting for a bus. You're waiting for the light rail. You're waiting for an Uber. Okay, what's my plan so that I don't infect myself? Because the Yetzer Hara is going to want to get in there, and he works in little steps, right? Incremental. You just do this one time, see nothing happened. It's the same thing we had in the Eitz Hadas, right? Hey, you touched the tree, see nothing happened. It's okay, now you can take a bite. Right? We're all susceptible. We have to be strong. We have to say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm standing up. No way. Not going to happen. This is the thing. Now, how do we do it? We do it by building these railings. And the idea is when you build a new house, you would think this is only if I build a new house. What if it's buy a used house? I don't have to put a railing up? It says no. When it says a new house, it means every time we do teshuvah, we become a new person. And so every time we have to start doing teshuvah again, it's something new. And we always in some level of a constant state of teshuvah. Having said that, there's one more thing I wanted to add to this, and that is, and this is the Netivot Shalom brings it, and he says, this whole message is so pertinent to Elul and building up to Rosh Hashanah. right? That we have to have the yirah, the fear, the awesomeness, the right of Hashem, which we've talked about in the past, that we're afraid to do things, and so on. And we also have to have the plan to to keep ourselves clean. And we have to know one other thing. It may seem like a losing battle, but the mission of the Yetzer Hara, besides trying to get us to do something, the mission of the Yetzer Hara is to lose. He's made to lose. He's not made to win. We see that when Yaakov was running from Esav, and he split his camp into three, and he said, "I've left some jars up on the mountain, right, Har Bayit, and I want to go get them." And that night he goes there and he stays and he wrestles with the Malach. The Malach was represented the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, whatever, right? He wrestled with him. And in the morning, what happened? Who won that fight? Yaakov. Yaakov won the fight. What's the Malach say in the morning? I have to go. It's time to go. Why? Because it's time for me to sing Shirah. I have to sing songs of praise to Hashem. I saw this, and I can't remember who quoted, but I saw this. It's so beautiful. It says, you just lost the fight, and now you want to go sing songs of praise to Hashem? You should be, sad. What's going on? It says the conclusion is that the whole role of the Yetzer Hara, while it's to influence us, ultimately it's to be defeated. And it can be defeated. And it's made to be defeated. And each of us have, when it says you're going to go to war against your enemies, plural, we each have our own enemies. We each have our own little things, our own nision, our own tests, our own little things that just get to us. We know what they are. For me, it's one thing. For you, it's something else. Or many things for me. Whatever it is, you know what they are. You have to focus. Be prepared. And the way to start preparing is now, beginning of Elul. So I want to leave you with one more thing. When we want to transform the status of something in Judaism, I'm not talking about something inanimate like our neshama, but something that's animate. What do? It goes into a mikveh. A woman goes from a place of being non-permissible to her husband to being permissible simply by going into mikveh. Kalim, pots, pans, whatever, that are made by a goy or bought from a goy or owned by a goy, that when we take them, they have to go into a mikveh before we can use them. So, and there's a big minhag that Erev Rosh Hashanah, Erev Yom Kippur, at least men go to the mikveh. Go to the mikveh. As a way, we're saying, we'll be transforming ourselves into something different. Now, a kosher mikveh has 40 seah of water in it. Now, how many days between Rosh Chodesh Elul and Yom Kippur? 40 days. Okay, so we see 40 and 40. But even bigger, how many hours in a day? 24. What's 40 times 24? 960.
Come on.
Come on. 960. I looked it up beforehand, don't worry. I'm not so smart. 960 hours. Happens that for a kosher mikveh, there's also 960 lugim of water in it.
160 what?
Lugim. Measurement. So now, we see a really good correlation between the physical mikveh of transforming the physicality of something, the status of something physical, or a physical status of a person. When somebody, by the way, we talked about taking the neshama of a Jew out of the body of a goy, or transforming the body and the soul of the Jewish soul that was trapped in the goy, transforming it. Everybody that goes through conversion has to go into a mikveh before they're converted. A guy could have his brit milah ahead of time, but it's not until they come out of emerge from the mikveh until they're really considered Jewish. The mikveh is big, life-changing. But when you go into a mikveh, do you have to touch every single drop of water in the mikveh? No. You have to immerse yourself. You have to be totally submerged. But one drop touches another drop. They're all interrelated and they all touch. It's, in other words, it's like electric, so to speak. You touch one, you've touched all. As long as they're together. It's the same thing here. Nobody's saying take 960 hours, starting at the beginning of Elul, and whatever, 960 times 60 minutes and and times 60 seconds, whatever that is. Nobody's saying go and every single moment see there on teshuvah. It's impossible. You have to function, But the idea of fighting the battle of teshuvah has to be preeminent in our minds and in what we're doing, and we have to be prepared for whatever may come. That's the idea of teshuvah. That's one of the ideas of teshuvah. We have to, anything that we've done in the past, we have to cry over it. Like this is crying for the parents. We have to do all those things. Then we can see that come Yom Kippur, we will not only have changed, we'll be a different person in a positive way. And that's the thing. And that was captive inside of us will be released, and we'll be able to say, not that we won the war. This will never be done with the war against the Yetzer Hara until the day we're not in this world. But it's battle by battle by battle. And each battle that we win changes us and changes who we are. And so this is the time we have to do it. We have to immerse ourselves every moment and every day to the best of our ability. You should see then that we will really feel a different type of Rosh Hashanah and certainly a different kind of Yom Kippur. Amen. Ken Yiratzon.